Welcome to the ScaleHQ Podcast, your weekly injection of tips and insights into the secrets of scaling. I'm your host, Steele, and I am obsessed with figuring out how to help founders just like you who are creating real value in the world to scale up so they can fulfill their potential. I do that each week by interviewing founders who successfully scaled, experts in all the areas of business that you need to master, interviews with founders who are still on the way up, and 10-minute tutorials and reflections from me based on my experiences in creating $100 million in revenue for 4 other companies over 8 years. So let's dive in and see what gems we can find together on this week's episode of the ScaleHQ Podcast. G'day everyone, and welcome back to the ScaleHQ Podcast. Welcome back to our regular listeners. And to anyone joining us for the first time, of course, we're always thrilled to have you. And if you are joining us live today on our first live interview on the ScaleHQ Podcast, we've gone live on LinkedIn, and in future we're going to expand that to probably YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. We can actually do all of that at the same time, which is very nice. It means we can find you on your favorite platform. But what I really wanted to do, the whole intention of going live, was to give you an opportunity to join me with our guests and to be able to ask them your questions about scaling. So going forward, I will change some of the formats, create some space for some live interaction with our audience and have some audience joining us in the room. So if Sam today, if we see anyone popping into the screen, I guess we'll figure out what we're supposed to do with that because I haven't done it before. But well, if you see somebody in there and they're raising their hand, let me know in case I miss it. So my guest this week, Samantha Hurst. Sam Hurst, founder of Clickstart Digital. Sam, you started a lingerie business in 2006. You scaled it and sold it 4 years later. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, long time ago now.
Yes, it feels like forever ago, doesn't it? And then you established Clickstart Digital as a company to help people who want to get into e-commerce to get started. So they come to your site, you've already got e-commerce businesses ready to go in different niches, you sell them the business, but then also the training and the advice on, on socials and digital marketing and business planning, so they actually sort of truncate that learning process, make less mistakes and more likely to succeed. Is that how you would summarize it as a fair summary as to what you're doing at Clickstart Digital?
Yep, you nailed it. Perfect summary.
In terms of context for our audience, we met not all that long ago, probably maybe 6 months ago. For those who are listening today, you may have just listened to an episode with Ant Boddicker from Solo Morte, who is part of a global mastermind that Ant and I put together in late 2023. And the wonderful Sam and well-traveled Sam Hurst has also decided to join us on this crazy journey of building a global mastermind model. We've got 6 founders. And our goal is to leverage our experiences, our perspectives, our wisdoms of each other to help us make progress against our personal and professional goals. We provide support and advice to each other in virtual sessions that we do, as well as outside of those, kind of like a peer advisory board model. And then we're coming together for a bit of a once-in-a-lifetime 7-day retreat, curated, professionally hosted in Croatia on a yacht, sailing to Montenegro and back. And in that, every one of us is going to be running a workshop for the rest of the group on something that the rest of the group want to hear about from each other. So it's not just going to be bonding and fun. We're also going to deeply learn from each other. And so I've started actually interviewing the founders from our global mastermind because you've got such amazing stories, and you've got everyone in that group is growing and scaling and has either scaled and exited, sometimes multiple times. Some have stepped back and installed CEOs. Some have got huge businesses. Some have got smaller businesses. But actually, everybody's really has got an incredible set of wisdom and experiences. And today, I'm really keen to understand what you have learned on the journey of building Clickstart Digital as a way of helping our founders who are listening today perhaps get there a bit faster if they're trying to scale, avoid some of the avoidable pains, and learn from your experience, because that's a nice way to do it. So can you just maybe kick us off, Sam, with what is Clickstart Digital? I know I gave a little bit of insight, but is there anything else you'd like to add to just what the business does, how it's set up?
Yeah. So you gave a great summary. We pretty much just set up e-commerce stores and then sell them with training and coaching. So we're just all about helping business newbies get into e-commerce and start without making all the expensive mistakes that we often see a lot of new business owners do. So we offer the complete framework for them to follow, and then we've got someone holding their hand during the entire process as well. So it's sort of like a one-stop shop for people that want to set up an e-com store, but they just don't know what to do, what to sell, and where to start. So, yeah.
Roger that. And actually, I imagine if you think about a learning curve, I imagine the learning curve is, by far the steepest in that first, 6 months to 24 months. And so having somebody help you just jump over a whole bunch of that hurdles can really save you a lot of pain, and probably also really optimize the chances that they succeed, because of course, not everybody's going to find it the easiest thing in the world to build that kind of business if they've never done it before. But being able to learn from somebody who's already done that successfully themselves and from their team, I think is a pretty amazing opportunity. Why did you start it? I mean, obviously, I talked about the fact that you built and scaled one, but then why did you not just do another one? Why did you decide to help other people do this?
So I had the lingerie business for a number of years, and I just felt like where I really was most passionate was sort of at that early startup phase in the business. Like that's when I was really excited about the business. And I realized I had a strong passion for creating businesses and building them up, I guess. And I just loved all of that side of things. And at that time, I just sort of, when I sold the lingerie business, I was working for a venture capital company for a few years, helping scale their online businesses. And I was talking to one of the guys that ran the fund, Dom. And we just had a chat, and he said, you're really good at setting up businesses, and you come up with all these ideas, and you know how to do it like the back of your hand and build a website, and you've got all these amazing skills. Why don't you turn that into a business? And literally I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. And then the next week I had it all set up, ready to go, and off I went. So it really came from a place of just wanting to help other people get out of the 9 to 5 like I did. So I was very fortunate to always have a great corporate career, but like a lot of people, I just got over it, and I just said, I don't want to be working for other people. I don't want to be making money for other people. I want to do this for myself, where I've got complete control of how much money I'm making and how many hours I want to work, and knowing that it's all benefiting me and not somebody else. And that was sort of what sort of pushed me into self-employment. And then Clickstart idea just kind of got born out of my background, I guess, and being sort of encouraged to create that. And also the big driver was I just genuinely wanted to help people. I thought if I can create this and help other people get out of the 9 to 5, like that, that's everything to me. So that was a real strong driver at the beginning to start the business and launch it. So
one of the things I noticed about that as well is one of the things I'm inferring. You tell me whether I'm right, but what I heard in that is actually one of the things you really love and that gives you energy is also the starting process, like the figuring out the right opportunity. That you said you were kind of noted for your idea generation, and I see a lot of founders who start to lose the joy in their business when it gets too big for them because they don't really want to scale up their leadership. They don't want to become a professional CEO. They don't like all the people problems and all the stuff that comes with it. But there's not many that then find a way to spend every day actually in a model where they're getting to spend more time doing the stuff that they really love, which for you is that sort of idea generation and getting people started and getting to help each other. It's really cool. So what are your personal dreams, and how does this business fit into that?
Look, I kind of feel like I'm living my personal dream now anyway. So I love traveling, and I've got a very strong work ethic, but I've also got a very balanced approach to life. And, we're here for, a short time, not a long time. And I want to have as much fun and adventure while I'm here on planet Earth. And the good thing with having a business is it affords me to live that life. I can pretty much live anywhere in the world and run my business. If I wanted to move and live in Italy or anywhere, I could do that tomorrow. Because my business I don't have to be here in Australia to run the business. So, I'm very grateful and very lucky that I've got a business model that has sort of allowed me to do that and to travel and organize amazing holidays and have great adventures. And that's what I'm all about, really.
Well, I can attest to that. I remember when we first connected on Facebook, just after we met, I was like, wow, I think every image that I've seen of Sam, she's in a different location. Like this is a proper traveler, and obviously being pretty nomadic myself, I love the fact that you have built. Actually, I don't know if Ben Handler's joined us today. I can see we've already got 8 people for our very first live. 8 people have already joined us, which is pretty cool. Ben, if you're one of those, I saw a post from Ben the other day about building a business that suits your lifestyle rather than trying to jam your lifestyle into the business. And I can see that you've actually done an incredible job of doing that. So well done to you. But it's obviously not always easy, right? Like there's no straight path. There's no just, yes, when you zoom out over a long enough period of time, it looks like a nice sort of compounding interest curve. But if you zoom in, it's like these just jagged peaks up and down, like amazing periods and then shit periods. And we get really tested. I'm interested in the journey that you've been running on Clickstart Digital. What has been something that's really tested your resilience? And then how has that approached how you run the business today?
Look, the most recent thing I can think of was probably a couple of years ago. I read Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers. Love him. He's, amazing. So I basically took the $100 million offers principles and I thought, okay, great. How can I apply this to my business? I did that. I ran a money back guarantee offer because at that time, this is a few years ago, when that was a long story, but when we were sort of running people's ads for them, we were seeing them get sort of very similar results by a certain period. So we thought, okay, well, we'll run a money back guarantee off the back of that. Obviously, there was some conditions attached to it, and launched that, and it just exploded the business. So it just went like this, which was amazing. But a number of things happened all in that time frame. So I think I launched the offer in August. By December that year, I pulled it because it was just, whilst it created and generated a lot of revenue, it also brought in a lot of people with the wrong mindset. So it just brought in all these clients with a lot of get rich quick scheme kind of energy. And they were just the worst, not all of them, but some of those clients were the worst people to deal with because they just had the wrong mindset. They weren't starting a business with the right intentions, I guess.
Intentions.
And I just quickly realized, okay, this was a mistake. And I had to sort of scramble, pull the offer, and then replace it with something else, and then pretty much deal with those clients for the next 12 months, which, created a lot of stress. And at the same time, I didn't have enough resources either. I had problems with two of my main resource people. They just sort of, anyway, long story, they sort of dropped off. It was just like this perfect, I call it like a perfect shitstorm, because that's what it felt like. It's like all this stuff happened in the space of this period. And it was like, what the, like, so yeah, I ran the offer. A couple of my staff went MIA. I had a resources issue. So we were having complaints as well coming in because of the resource issue, as well as the expectations coming in from some of these people. And at the same time, I got a blood clot in my brain. So this was all in the same period. So it was a very, very, very stressful time when I was told to take time off work and, you should have had a major stroke and basically died and you haven't. So, you need to take this seriously. And I couldn't just step away from my business. And at that time, I didn't have a strong management team in place either. So a lot of lessons come off the back of that. Whilst it was successful, I guess, from a monetary point of view, it obviously caused and created a lot of issues, but I learned from all those issues and put things into place now that, to avoid those kind of things happening in the future, I guess. Well, not the blood clot in my head, but the other things. So, yes.
Totally. There's so many things in there. And I want to chat about about outcome aligned pricing models and guarantees, because actually they can be, of course, done really well, and there's probably a lot of learnings from that. So if you go back to, if you think about what are some of the specific things that you've really changed, if you think about that experience that you had, what have you done differently since then? How has it informed how you're running the business today?
Well, we have more resources. I have a management team in place as well. So I hired a general manager. I had someone else that was sort of doing that role, but she was sort of doing sales and she wasn't really wanting to be in that role. And then I read one of those, I can't remember what book it was, but it was a book about hiring, and it basically said, don't put the wrong person in a role that they don't want. And then I realized, okay, I need to actually hire someone specifically to sort of take off a lot of stuff off my plate. So I did that. So definitely hiring a good management team was probably one of the biggest lessons from that, and making sure you've got enough resources if you're going to start scaling or doing something to scale the business quickly. So, yeah.
I think that's such an interesting lesson. I'm literally this Friday, I'm running my second workshop for the LinkedIn community on outcome aligned pricing, which is not necessarily a guarantee, but it is a shared risk model with your client in the context of what they view to success to be like, so that you're not just getting paid for the service. There's some skin in the game. You may have a premium pricing opportunity. There's some sort of shared risk model, but it's really interesting. One of the things that I make sure that I talk to them about is, how do you reduce your risk? How do you ensure that you can pilot it, iterate it, test it, get learning? So to your point, is it attracting the right clients? Is it attracting the people that we really want? Can I scale the service? If it's a services business, and so the question is not, what do you do if this goes really poorly? But to your point, what do you do if this actually goes really well? How are you actually going to keep your brand and your quality in check? Because that can, as you experienced yourself, it causes significant pain and issues, and then can end up in all sorts of personal situations as well. So I applaud you for getting through to the other side of it, and good on you for taking the risk in the first place. And there's just so many learnings that come out of it. On this journey, what's been the greatest fear that you've had at any stage since starting Clickstart Digital?
I would guess a lot of other business owners have this fear, is that one day your business model isn't needed anymore, and something else comes in and it wipes your business model out. So there's always that, I guess. I do feel people are always going to need coaching, and I don't think AI is something that could probably replace that human component of my business. But I mean, you never know. So I think that's definitely something that's always a little bit of a fear is, what if something comes along? And then obviously, revenue crashing, things changing in the business, which has kind of been happening in the last 6 months, in all honesty. So the business has been going pretty strongly for a number of years. I've been in business for 12 years, but recently it's sort of, the revenue's dipped down a bit. So as I say to people, like when my business revenue goes down, I get busy, and when the revenue's up, I'm less busy. So.
Sam, can you give people a sense of the scale of the business at the moment, using whatever metrics you're happy to sort of share, whether it's customer numbers or revenue, or what size is the business at the moment?
Yeah, so the business hit 7 figures probably 7 years ago. And currently I've been on sort of multiple 7 figures. I haven't hit 8 figures yet, unfortunately. And in more recent times, it's kind of dropped by 50%. So it's sort of come back down again in the last sort of, 5 months, I think it's been. So, yeah, we've got about 1,200 clients and 10 staff.
Awesome. Like, what sort of lessons are you drawing? You might be in the thick of it right now, so sometimes you don't always get that perspective until after. But if you're in the fire at the moment and you've taken some big revenue hits, what are you learning from that period? Like, what are you noticing? How are you doing things differently, maybe into how you would have done them in the early days? Like, how are you managing that period given the revenue retraction?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned, it was, I think it was back in 2018, 2019. I didn't have enough funds in the kitty, to sort of save for a rainy day, as they say. So if something happens in the business, you've got enough money there for a year or two to survive. So your business will be fine, kind of thing. So I think that was one of my biggest lessons back then, which I've learned, and also paying tax and GST and everything, every quarter instead of putting it off. Because back then there was 2 things that happened. I was given the wrong tax advice. I didn't have a great accountant back then. So there was that was a problem. And then the second thing was I was paying off my tax debts. So those 2 things combined created, long story, but it just created a problem. And then financially, the sales sort of dropped off a little bit that year. And then I was looking at, I had got a new accountant, and then I was talking to him. I don't know, what does bankruptcy look like? I don't know. Is that something I might have to consider? Because I had this accumulation of tax debt. It's a very long story, but I was just given the wrong advice from an accountant that didn't know what she was doing. And that nearly buried me. But I worked out a way to get out of it. I got out of it. And obviously it's a different story now. But that lesson, I mean, I've always got a good amount of money in the kitty, for when these things happen. So it's not like, revenue goes down. I'm like, oh my God, I have to close the doors, So I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is always making sure you got enough money just in case things change and shift in your business.
For you to know what your minimum threshold is, do you say, I always need to have X months worth of sort of OPEX, stashed in cash? Is that how you think about it? Is it months, or is it just like a certain number that makes you feel comfortable? How do you think about that as the business has changed?
Look, it's probably a certain number that makes me feel comfortable, but it's enough to sort of carry me if I wasn't making profit for a number of months or whatever it might be, or a year or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, one of the things that I notice about, there's no correlation. I know when people are scaling, they often assume that once they get to 8 figures or mid 8 figures, that all of a sudden they're just going to have heaps of cash in the bank. Like, how could I possibly not have that by the time that I've actually got to that scale? But I've got plenty of clients that I've worked with over time that have, $10 million plus businesses, and some who have significantly less cash in the bank than clients who've got $2, $3, $4, and $5 million businesses. But what's interesting is every business faces headwinds. There is never a time where the sun is just shining all the time. Like, things will go wrong. And the most interesting thing that I notice is that actually those founders who have the cash balances make the best decisions in those periods, because they're not forced to make massive cuts immediately because things have retracted a bit. So they may not lose a whole bunch of knowledge, or they may want to retain certain people like that. They have more choice. They feel more calm. Because they've actually got that hedge. And so I think it's a really interesting lesson. Your business and your life are actually quite sort of intertwined in a way. How has the business affected who you are, or your life kind of irrevocably?
And I say this to my clients, it's like you will grow with your business, and you always have to do work on your business, and you always have to do work on yourself. And those two things just go hand in hand. So I guess I have grown a lot in the last decade. I'm probably a different person now than what I was. And I have an amazing lifestyle thanks to my business, and I'm always very grateful for that. And I get to, do something I'm passionate about, which is helping other people, get started as well. So yeah, so no, the business has been nothing but a positive, even with its ups and downs and really testing times. It's still all worth it overall, and I wouldn't change a thing.
E-commerce is such an interesting space, right? Because there's got to be no more promoted business model as like a fast and easy way to make money, whether it's kind of pure e-com, just drop shipping, it's affiliate marketing and something. And I've got a 19-year-old who's got a strong entrepreneurial streak every day going, oh, what about this side hustle? And what about that side hustle? And what do people not ask about what it takes to scale an e-commerce business that they should be asking, or that you wish that they asked?
I think they just need to make sure they have the right mindset. I think, everyone's always worried about failing, and that's a common thing I hear when I'm talking to people on the phone about, them coming on board. It's the biggest fear of failing. It's like, well, if you don't give up, you don't fail. I mean, when things have been tough, like they have been in my own business, I'm not throwing the towel in. I'm getting in there, getting my hands dirty and working out the issue and pivoting and fixing things up or whatever it might be. So I think that's what people should probably focus on more, is just being persistent and having the right mindset going into it.
Is that a part of the way that you do your training when you onboard new owners? Because I imagine, if you think about the entrepreneurial journey, I'm sure there's lots of different models, but, if you look at the way Hormozy explains it, you get excited about an opportunity, which I imagine lots of people are like, oh, I'm going to be a bajillionaire. I'm going to start an e-commerce business. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so easy. Everybody's making huge money. I see it on TikTok every day. And so they're in this like uninformed optimism. They've got no idea, but they're super excited. So they get involved. And then to your point, you get involved and then you get to the informed pessimism starts where you're like, oh, okay, it's maybe not quite as easy as I thought it was going to be. It's a little bit hard. There's all these things I've got to learn that I don't really like having to learn, and things get a little bit harder. And then you get to the really hard part, to your point, something goes wrong, something material shifts, I don't know, your supplier, you have a relationship breakdown, or who knows, it could be a million things. And you get the choice. You're in the valley of despair, and your choice is, do I go back and chase a new shiny object, which takes me back to uninformed optimism, which feels wonderful for that period of time? Or do I accept the fact that actually the failure and the success are actually the same road, but the success is just a bit further down that road? And if you get off that road, you're going to be on a different road. So actually the only way to get to success, to your point, is to stick it out and keep trying to make it work. Do you have to teach people, or do you screen for that? How do you do that in the way that you help people succeed? Because I know that's really important to you, seeing them win.
Yeah, well, there's, I guess, two parts to that. So when we're having a discovery call with potential clients, that's obviously things we ask them certain questions just to make sure that they've got the right expectations. So, the red flags we look out for are people that have the wrong mindset, or they're just looking for a get rich quick scheme, or, they don't have a job or funding to sort of back them just in case it all doesn't go to plan. So they're all sort of things we look out for in the beginning, because we don't want to bring on clients that, aren't financially stable or otherwise. The other thing is we have like a whole module in our training hub that talks about mindset. So, and we've also got other things in the training hub that talk about, potential blocks, like people that might have blocks with money. There's a lot of stuff covered in our mindset sort of coaching as well, because that's really important. A lot of people some people might think it's all fluffy sort of stuff, but any successful business owner knows how important, the mindset part of it is with having a successful business. So, yeah.
Feels like it's probably one of the most underrated bit by new founders, right? Like actually how important that component is going to be. We've already chatted actually about a couple of your mentors that you've had over time, but I'm interested in who's been the most significant mentor to you over the last, since you started Click to Start Digital, and what's the most impactful bit of advice you've had from them?
It probably would be, I've been working with Simon Reynolds forever, so probably 8 to 9 years, I think it's been. And it's very ad hoc. It's just, whenever I feel like I need help, I just book in for a call with him and we catch up over Zoom. And I go through what I want help with, and he's always got amazing feedback and and suggestions and things like that. But the thing with him, what I've always done, because I trust him, and because we've got that relationship for such a long time, because I've known him for such a long time as well with the coaching, everything he tells me to do, I do. I just implement everything. If he says do XYZ, I do XYZ. And every time I do that, it always works. He'll say, okay, you need to do this, you need to change that, whatever. I'll apply all those things and it always makes a difference. I don't think I've ever had a session where I haven't gotten value out of the session or it hasn't made a positive impact to my business or myself. I mean, he was the one when I was going through all that tough stuff with the money back, and then at the same time with, having the blood clot, and he knows how, stressed I was, and he was just like, hire a general manager, Sam, hire a general manager. You can't be doing this to yourself. You need to look after yourself. That's the most important thing. So he's sort of, a bit like a father figure, I guess, too, but just, he's been instrumental in my success. And I honestly do believe I wouldn't have had the success that I've had without having him or someone similar, like a mentor. I just think it's really important as a business owner to have a coach or a mentor. I just think it's imperative.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. And there's probably also lots of people listening who don't have one but don't really know where to start. How did you find him? Were you like Googling? Did you get a referral from someone? Were you looking for something specific? Like, how did you come across him?
It was kind of a referral. This is like a long time ago. This is probably when I was 2 years into ClickStart. I went to one of those events. I think it was Jack Delosa, and he was up on stage and talking about stuff, and he mentioned Simon Reynolds, and I just wrote that name down, and I don't know why, I just had this feeling that was going to be the right person for me. Did the research, found out who he was and what his background was, and then I'm like, yep, and then had a session with him, and then that was that pretty much. So yeah, it was just kind of a referral, I guess.
So given everything you've been through and the success you've had as well as the challenges you've had, what is the most important piece of advice you would give to your younger self, Sam Hurst, starting out on the ClickStart digital journey? What would you say to yourself now?
Treat the business as a separate entity. I think for a long time, I always, the business's money was my money. So I'm like, woohoo, I'm making all this money. I'm just going to go spend it and do all these bougie holidays and buy these Chanel handbags and I don't know, whatever. So I think with time, I've obviously learned, you've got to separate the two. It's not, there's a business and then there's you. And yeah, I guess circling back to what we'd spoken about earlier, it's just having enough cash in the bank, make sure that's when you're starting the business, make sure that's your number one goal. Instead of getting all excited and going, oh, all this money is coming in, I'm going to go have fun and spend it. Make sure you're putting enough away in a kitty so if things do shift in the business, you're covered. So I'd say they're probably the biggest things.
You got some. Lots of founders, when they're growing up through their businesses, try to develop some kind of a ratio. And sometimes it changes, of course, but have you developed any principles that help you think about how much of your profitability you reinvest in the business versus how much you take out as a dividend? And then you do, play with it and have fun. Like how have you thought about that? Do you have any principles that underpin how you now think about it as a business and an asset?
Yes, I guess my accountant, I've got a really good accountant and I've been working with him for maybe 4 years now. So he's really good with that and he knows what I'm like. So he's sort of like, right, Sam, you just got to pay yourself a salary and this is, keep it all separately and this is your money and don't dip into the money. So he's been extremely helpful with all that sort of stuff, with setting things up properly. So, I'm getting paid a weekly salary from my business. And I guess that salary number just came down to, okay, how much do I need to live the lifestyle that I want to live? And that's basically what I take out of the business. But yeah, I don't ever touch the business's money.
I'm interested, before we wrap up, to understand, where is this going? Like, are you planning? Are you working towards an exit? Are you planning towards a full step back where you've got a CEO in place, not even just a general manager, but somebody who's also designing strategy? Like, what do you want to do with this business? Where does it sort of fit into the future for you?
Look, I have thought for a while I'd love to sell it. So that's definitely still something on the horizon. I don't feel like maybe the business is probably ready to sell right now just because of what's been going on. So I just need to get everything sorted and fixed. And then definitely that's probably where I'll go eventually. But yeah, definitely scaling and then selling.
And do you think this will be easier or harder to sell than your first, fundamentally, specifically e-commerce business as opposed to services business that's providing e-commerce businesses to other people? Do you think it'll be harder or easier?
I think it's going to be harder, for a number of reasons. I mean, the e-commerce store was, it was a lot cheaper than probably what I'd be selling ClickStart for. So I think there's that. So there's more people around that had that money than probably would be asking for ClickStart. And yeah, it's a different type of business because even though we're sort of delivering, I guess, a product, it's mostly service-based business, ClickStart. So a thing that might sort of prevent me from selling it as quickly as I'd like, I don't know. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So
No, that's good. Well, I know that on the boat, not before long, I'm going to be sharing. The team have asked me to sort of go through a exit readiness or a sort of an exit scorecard, like how to assess where you're at and what your priorities might be if you do want to get a premium valuation in the future, and therefore help you think about where you might want to focus and what does an investor think is going to create high value and therefore a premium multiple they're willing to pay. So that'll be fun to go through. Sam, thank you so much for spending the time with me. I would love to acknowledge the fact that you have built and succeeded, but then actually rather than just giving back, you've built a business that also allows you to give back, which I think is really amazing because it allows you to have a real, I love the pressure that puts on the quality of the service and the delivery. Like giving back is one thing, but you can also be quite lazy in the way that you do that. But when you're giving back in a way that's actually a business, then you have all the pressures of making sure it's competitive, making sure it's the best in the market, keeping your service levels really high, all that stuff. And so I think well done to you for what you have built. I know you're going through a tougher period right now, and no doubt you're going to stay on the same road and therefore the success. And the next stage of growth is going to be on the other side of that. So it's been great to get to know you and a real honor for me. If people wanted to get in touch with you or follow along with what you're doing, click start, where would you direct them to?
Just to my website, clickstartdigital.com.au.
Beautiful. So if you're listening today and you have been thinking about e-commerce for a while, or maybe you have a family member or a partner or something who's been thinking about getting into an e-commerce business, may be an excellent place to go and check out. Thank you so much, Sam. Really enjoyed our conversation today, and I'll be seeing you before long.
Yeah, sure.
And thanks to everybody who dialed into us today on LinkedIn. That was fun. Cheers. The team here at ScaleHQ hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Now, if you want to achieve scale, but you want to know what's going to hold you back, we can help. Head over to scalehq.com.au/growth score to get your free 9-page growth score report. That's going to help you understand where your top 3 barriers are to scale. And if you'd like, we'll even do a free debrief on the report for you with no obligations or expectations, just lots of value from some CEOs who've scaled to help you on your journey. That's scalehq.com.au/growth score. And find out what's holding you back from fulfilling the potential of your business today.